Are we talking about Roy de Maistre's arrested movement from a trio, which is just behind me here? Roy de Maistre was one of the pioneers of modernism in Australia, and born Leroy, he was the sixth of 11 children. He was born in country New South Wales, and while he was still a teenager, he left Bowral and headed to Sydney with the express purpose he wanted to go and study music and painting. So he commenced his training at the Royal Art Society of New South Wales, and he was also studying at Julian Ashton's School of Art.
Do you know if Roy was a musician?
Yes, I forget whether or not it was just piano, but his roommate definitely played cello. But he has had a huge interest in the idea of music and the relationship with painting. So he moves to Sydney in about 1913. He joins the army, and once he's discharged in 1917, he begins an interest in the psychological and therapeutic effects of colour. So he starts working with a doctor, Dr. Charles Gordon Moffat, and he works on colour experiments as treatment and the development of colour schemes for the rooms of shell-shocked soldiers. Now, that is incredibly hard few words to say in a row. So he starts working on looking at how colour can help these soldiers recover from the trauma of war.
Do you know if the colour was like the way they painted the walls, or was it some kind of thing he waved in front of their faces? Or
I think he was really into room design, interior design, so it was building an environment which could be calming. And it's about this stage he shares a room with Adrian Verbruggen, who was the son of the director of the New South Wales State Conservatorium of Music. And they start a friendship where they start discussing the colour scales, colour harmonies, and the uses to which they might be put. So they were interested in colour pitch, and they illustrated this to themselves by the association with musical pitch. So looking at the relationship between colour and music. And so after working together on these possibilities of colour music correspondence, they approach a fellow art student Roland Wakelin, to extend their collaboration. And so from about 1918, Roland Wakelin and de Maistre made experimental studies of the relationship between colour and music, and they developed colour music scales. So
I know Roy put different colours to different sounds, but did he make up a colour for each sound, or do you know if he saw a colour for each sound?
Well, I guess he develops the chart. So you've got 7 colours in the colour spectrum. So he saw that sort of scale. You start from one colour, go through to the end, and repeat on the 8th. It's like a musical scale. For him, A was red. B was orange, C was yellow. Although other artists who have made their own colour spectrum charts, for instance, Margaret Preston, her A, I believe, was yellow, not red.
That's a good point, because I've heard of different guys in bands, a few people I know, maybe it's drugs or alcohol, I'm not sure, but seeing different colours during different songs.
Yeah.
But maybe he saw particular colours with different types of melodies, and other people see other things. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I guess there's it's the eye in the way he saw it, but he developed his colour music charts into like little colour wheels. And being the entrepreneur he was, he actually had it patented and sold it through Grace Brothers in the 1920s. So you could go in and buy your colour music harmonising charts by Roy de Maistre, and you get them and you take them home and you set up your colours. And I have a little extract from his...
Was he the guy that came up with the complementary colours, like the circle that you see?
Yeah. Sorry, that's his colour harmonising disc. Yeah. So there's a little the instructions. It says, place one of the covering masks on your colour disc with the opening marked 1. Over the colour you wish to make your keynote of your scheme. You now have before you a scale of 7 different colours, each colour being shown in 11 different shades. Supposing you've chosen yellow as your keynote, you'll find that this scale gives you a very beautiful range of colour, and as a whole, is wonderfully harmonious. And so he's selling to you this idea of colour therapy, and also visual harmony within the home. So after he develops his colour music chart, he moves overseas. He heads to London, and so he's still working a bit of interior design and doing different bits and pieces. And he arrives in England at about the time he paints the painting here, and he meets a young interior designer called Francis Bacon. Now, at this stage, Francis Bacon wasn't a painter. He was an interior designer. And Roy de Maistre is seen as this man who, that they start a relationship, and he promotes and encourages Francis Bacon to go into to start painting and to leave, the world of interior design and actually become a painter. So, although everyone knows who Francis Bacon is, I think that there's little less is known about this man who was so influential, and I think something which makes Roy de Maistre very, very interesting.
Yeah, the idea that Francis Bacon was just working on houses before his time as like one of the most famous painters, and just needed some encouragement.
Yeah, so that when they met, they actually had an exhibition where Francis Bacon was exhibiting rugs, different mirrors, and so there was this nice sort of like Roy de Maistre was incredibly influential in his life, so it makes him quite a special artist as well.
Do you know if de Maistre went away from the stuff he's working on with colour and sound? Did he then, before that, was he working on, I don't know, portraits, or after it, was he working on other stuff, or was this like his life goal within painting? Was this what he did?
Well, he and Roland Wakelin have an exhibition in 1919 called Colour in Art, and that's where they put together, it's 11 paintings and 5 room designs all about visual harmony and music. But after that, throughout the 20s, he sort of departs from that for a little while. It's not till till he arrives in England that he embarks on a series of 4 paintings which he revisits this idea of colour and music. So he, in the early 1930s, this is one of this group of 4 works which he paints, which is revisiting this idea. So it's a continuation of his earlier interest in colour music, yet it's also significant because it's a development of these ideas into really major abstract paintings. And as the title of the works, proclaims, it's got specific musical origins. And also, if you look at it, what looks seemingly abstract, it does also resemble musical notation as well as a piano keyboard. So they're real grids. It actually is quite structured in what looks quite abstract at the same time. What I find interesting about these works as well is that if you know his colour chart, if you know that A equals red, B equals orange, C equals yellow, well then you can start to divide up that painting and go, okay, this section here is red, so that's A. So what's kind of nice about this as well is that you could actually play this painting. You could decode it yourself and play it. So I find that it gives quite a different interaction and intimate engagement with the painting as well.
I'm just thinking probably the only person that could play it though is Roy himself.
Well, some of the works from this series give a clue to their origins. So this is a musical form, a trio. But also other works in the series, say Beethoven, he references Beethoven or he references the number of bars that should be played over. So he does give you some clues to how you should interpret it.
I suppose the details within music writing, there's a lot of details within notation that he probably wouldn't have covered on what he does. So I guess, but once he had his code laid out, people could probably play what he had in mind. But well, it's very interesting like that. Yeah.
So I think that over the years there has been considerable confusion and attempts to match the titles of these works because to which one best seems appropriate, because they're all of a similar size and focus on the same musical phrase. So there's always been a little bit of debate about which title actually links to which painting. And so all of these works were encrypted by a colour music code and a rainbow of colours running parallel to a musical scale. And so since he's represented musical notes with specific colours, each, colour patch you can like sort of match it to its equivalent. So it's quite interesting. There's what seemingly is just, it's much deeper.
Do you think like the other people were interested in this, or was it something that he just saw? It was like his vision that he had when he listened to music, he saw colours, wanted to document that in some way, or was like, I got the feeling, I read about him briefly, that in Sydney at the time there was some discussion on this idea in itself. So perhaps there were a few people looking into it.
It was quite a broad group of people. A lot of Sydney artists like Margaret Preston, Roland Wakeland, Roy DeMastro. They were all Thea Proctor as well. Very interested in making looking at this relationship. Do you know if any of these artists agreed on colours they saw within sound? I think, did Roy say to someone else, to Margaret, did you just see some yellow? Because I heard, you know what I mean? Like, is it that kind of thing, or is it like different people? I don't expect you to know, by the way, but different people see certain colours with sound, or with people that are open to it? Do you think it's like a whole range of people within society see a certain colour yellow when there's a certain A buzzing off a tram going down Swanston Street? I'm intrigued by that because I don't see colour. Yeah, I know that Thea Proctor taught DeMastro's colour chart, but I also know that Margaret Preston updated hers to a different range. So yeah, obviously there was a little bit.
So she had her own chart.
Yeah, she had separate different colours matching with hers. So each artists were seeing different colours or agreeing and teaching these colours, or they'd have their own charts as well.
I guess it's the coolest thing about an artist is they have a unique thought, but they're around to document it in the first place, whereas some people might see that living whatever life they lead, but luckily these people are like fascinated by what they're seeing and decide to put it down in something like this that we can discuss decades later. I mean, it's fascinating.
I was speaking to a friend on Friday about the talk and saying I was a little bit nervous, and they were saying that they were talking about John Lennon and the story about in the recording studio, can you make it sound a little bit more orange? And so looking at other artists and musicians and their relationship to colour as well.
But he'd be a very intimidating guy, and so I mean that'd be a very hard thing to try, and you wouldn't shy away from that. You'd go, what the hell is he talking about? He was probably just having a joke, I'm not sure.